Hello everyone, welcome to the Mr. Spectre channel. Today, I'm going to tell you 3 real and terrifying stories from Halloween night. So turn off the lights and stay with me until the end of the video. Story 1. This nightmare started 2 years ago, precisely on Halloween night 2023. I'm 25 now, but I was 22 when this happened. After a horrific work shift, my whole body ached. We had a huge festival where parents brought their children to our center for a lot of hectic activities. Competitive games, a best costume contest, and a very intense dodgeball game between the kids and the parents. It was fun, but it was truly exhausting. I'm a community worker, so dealing with crowds is my daily job. But that day had specifically drained me, both physically and mentally. When the work finally finished and I got home, all I wanted was sleep. Less than an hour later, around 6 p.m., my phone rang. It was my little sister. Savannah, whose name has been changed, was begging me to take her and my nephew, Jackson, trick-or-treating. None of the parents had the energy for it. So naturally, this duty fell upon me, the cool big brother who had to save Halloween. Savannah was 15, and Jackson was only 11. Even though I wanted to collapse and sleep, I reluctantly got up, got dressed, and headed to my parents' house. When I arrived, Savannah was still finalizing the details of her costume. She was dressed as Raven from Teen Titans. Her makeup was fantastic. A pale look that made her appear ghostly. Jackson was dressed as Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat, spinning around. Once they were ready, we got in the car. I took them to a busy, wealthy neighborhood so they could gather the maximum amount of candy. We started searching quickly. The atmosphere was great. Everyone was kind and pouring handfuls of candy into the bags. There was even an old man who was grilling hot dogs and giving out soda instead of candy. He said kids needed protein tonight, not just sugar. To be honest, it was a beautiful gesture. The world needs more people like that. We walked through the crowds of children, and others complimented Savannah and Jackson's costumes. I saw some truly awesome costumes myself. The whole neighborhood had really gone all out. But when we reached the last house, the atmosphere suddenly changed. We started walking back towards my car. It was a long walk, maybe 10 minutes, as we had gone far from where I had parked. The streets were getting quiet. Most families had gone inside their homes. That's when my hairs on my arms stood up. Across the street, a person dressed entirely in black was standing motionless in the yard of a house with no lights on. I'm surprised I even saw them, but I'm always aware of my surroundings. When I looked closely, I saw they were wearing a hooded cloak and a mask. Their face was not visible. It was like looking into absolute blackness. I couldn't tell if they were male or female or how old they were, but I was certain of one thing. Their gaze was locked on us. I quietly told the kids, "Stick close to me. Right now. Someone across the street looks suspicious. Look, but don't make it obvious." I wanted them to be aware, but I didn't want to provoke the stranger. Jackson laughed, thinking it was a joke, or that the person wanted them to scare them. But Savannah quickly sensed the heaviness of the atmosphere. Just so you know, I legally carry a Glock in my backpack. Savannah knew this. That's why when I warned her, she understood the situation was serious. Jackson was oblivious, too young to know I was armed. As we quickened our pace, the person's head seemed to turn and follow us in the darkness. We were nearing the car when I heard it. The sound of heavy, deliberate boots pounding on the asphalt behind us. I quickly turned around. It was the same person, but much closer. The details were clearer and more terrifying now. A tactical bulletproof vest, military boots, tactical pants tucked into the boots. They were also wearing a tight spandex mask that completely obscured their facial features. This was not a Halloween costume. This was military gear. My mind screamed, someone dressed like this is usually prepared for violence and conflict. I thought, they are hunting us. I leaned down to the kids and said, "Listen to me. Don't stop. Don't look behind you. That person is directly behind us. We need to move calmly, but quickly. Don't panic." I said this mostly for Jackson, to make sure he understood this wasn't a game. Savannah's face was white with fear. We continued walking, checking behind us stealthily. That person was moving at our speed, maintaining the distance, but still getting closer. We reached the car, but they were still coming towards us, without any fear. I couldn't risk them reaching us while we unlocked the doors. I opened the zip of my bag, drew my gun, and aimed it directly at their chest. I yelled, "Why are you following us, damn it?" The person raised their hands, seemingly surprised, and slowly removed their mask. It was a woman, perhaps in her late 30s. At first, she said nothing. She just stared at me with those dead, shark-like eyes. I yelled again, "Why are you following us?" The answer she gave was eerily artificial and rehearsed. In a robotic voice, she said, "I am an undercover police officer. There was a report of a robbery. I was investigating. I saw you looking suspicious, so I followed you. Lower that weapon or I will arrest you." I paused and lowered the barrel of the gun slightly, but my whole being screamed that she was lying. Nothing made sense. An undercover cop with a cloak, standing in a dark yard doing nothing? And how did me looking at her make me a robbery suspect? Her story was full of holes. Why would I be robbing a place with two kids in Halloween costumes? I angrily asked her, "If you're an undercover cop, why are you wearing tactical gear and what's with the cloak?" She didn't answer. Her expression changed from indifference to something malicious. It was like she was angry that her lie hadn't worked. Savannah and Jackson were frozen beside me. Then a terrifying, sick smile spread across her face. In a quiet, chilling voice, she said, "If you hadn't had that gun, tonight would have ended very, very differently." As soon as that sentence left her mouth, 4 shadows emerged from between the houses. They were all wearing tactical and military clothing. Silent. Waiting. I yelled at the kids, "Get in the car, now!" I kept the gun aimed at the woman until the kids were inside. I jumped in, slammed the door, and sped away at full throttle. In the rearview mirror, I saw her still standing there, smiling. The 4 men behind her weren't smiling, though. They were just staring, soulless, like executioners. It was the scariest thing I had ever seen. The entire drive back was absolute silence. I got the kids home safely, but my own mind was shattered. Why us? Why that specific street? It felt like it was a trap waiting for someone to fall into it. And the story didn't end there. A few days later, a photo was texted to my phone. No text, just a photo of my car parked in my apartment complex parking lot. The police filed a report but did nothing. They said no direct threat was made. Useless. Out of paranoia and fear, I went back to the house where the woman had been standing. The homeowner, a confused man, said there was no robbery that night. He had been asleep and hadn't seen anything. I knew the woman had lied, but confirming it made it worse. Those people were not police. They were hunters. And somehow they had found my number and address. Had they been watching us beforehand, or was it just our bad luck? Were they planning an abduction? This paranoia and fear was driving me crazy. CCTV cameras, therapy, sleepless nights. Fortunately, they haven't contacted me again. But I will never forget those dead eyes. Writing this story is a way for me to try to forget. But please, be aware of your surroundings. The devil isn't always disguised as a monster. Sometimes he looks like a person standing in the darkness. My being armed that night is the only reason our photos aren't on a missing person's wall right now.
Story 2. This memory still haunts me. I was 12 years old. It was Halloween, and my family had booked a remote resort. They wanted us to do something different this year instead of just walking the neighborhood. They had a scary festival there, a hayride through the woods, games, and things like that. It was a small, isolated place surrounded by dense forest. By day, it was beautiful and rustic, but at night, the forest became like a black ocean. We arrived in the afternoon and checked into our room. I remembered the smell of wood smoke and burnt sugar. It felt safe. My parents unpacked and I ran towards the main lobby. The atmosphere was festive. Orange lights, fake spider webs, carnival games. I made friends there with another boy named Ryan, who was dressed as a skeleton. We quickly hit it off and started collecting candy. Around 7 p.m., the crowd moved towards the hayride. A tractor was pulling a large wagon full of hay towards the edge of the forest. We got on with about 20 other people. The driver was wearing a scarecrow mask, and some actors dressed as zombies were hiding in the bushes. At first, everything was normal and funny, but the deeper we went into the forest, the fainter the torchlight became. A bad feeling came over me. In a very dark part of the forest, I saw him, a man, standing right outside the circle of torchlight. He wasn't an actor. He was wearing normal clothes, a black jacket, jeans, and a baseball cap pulled down low. He had no makeup, no special costume. He was just a man, motionless, with his hands in his pockets. He wasn't trying to scare us. He was observing us. Then he lifted his head. Even in the shadow, I felt his heavy, cold gaze lock onto me. I looked around, but no one else had noticed him. When I looked back, he hadn't even blinked. The ride ended, and I checked the forest again. He was gone. I told myself I was imagining things. We went back to the others. Ryan and I sat by the fire. But an hour later, that bad feeling returned. I looked around. There, 30 feet away near the tree line, was the same man, standing alone, watching. My stomach churned. He was looking directly at me. I could make out his short beard and a logo on his cap. I pointed him out to Ryan. Ryan said, "He's probably one of the staff." I said, "No, he was in the woods, deep in the woods. He wasn't someone's dad. He wasn't talking to anyone." A few moments later, he disappeared again. It was 9 p.m., and the younger kids had gone to sleep. Ryan and I, feeling brave, decided to go explore the road behind the cabins. We wanted to scare ourselves. What a stupid idea. We walked along the dirt road, our flashlights piercing the darkness. The sound of the festival and music slowly faded. Silence took over. We reached an open area that had a sign, "Private Property." We were messing around and throwing rocks when we heard it. Crunch. A footstep. Heavy, measured steps coming from the darkness behind us. We froze. Ryan whispered, "Is it a kid?" No, that was the sound of a big man's footsteps. I shone the light down the road. Nothing but shadow. The footsteps stopped. The silence was deafening. Then a voice, deep and calm, came from the darkness. "Hello, boys." Terror consumed me. I knew this was the observer's voice. He stepped into the beam of my flashlight. Black jacket, cap, the same man from the woods. He quietly asked, "What are you doing here? Do you like candy?" He reached into his pocket. An orange wrapper flashed. A Reese's cup. He smiled and said, "I have a lot of these in my cabin. Come with me." Ryan backed away in fear. The man took a step closer and lowered his voice. "Don't be afraid. It's Halloween. I saw you boys on the hayride. I was waiting for you." That sentence destroyed me. I grabbed Ryan's hand and yelled, "Run!" As if our lives depended on it, we ran towards the lights of the resort. Behind us, the sound of his heavy boots pounded on the dirt. He was chasing us. I didn't look back, I just ran. My lungs were burning. We burst out from between the trees and started screaming for help near the fire. The adults gathered around us. I turned to point him out, but the road was empty. My parents were terrified. We told them everything. My dad and a few staff members went into the woods with powerful flashlights. Nothing. He had vanished into the ground. They called the police, statements were taken, cabins were searched. That night, we locked all the doors and windows. I stayed awake, listening to the wind, thinking he was outside. The police found no trace of him. No car, no name on the guest list. He was a vagrant, a predator who had been lurking on the edge of a family resort. The next day, as we left, I kept looking at the edge of the forest, expecting to see him wave at me. For months, I saw his face in crowds. Ryan was badly traumatized too. What scares me now isn't that he chased us. It's what would have happened if we hadn't run. He had a plan to take us to that cabin. Now, whenever I see a lone man watching children from a distance, my body shivers. Monsters are real, and they look exactly like us. Story 3. My name is Roger. This happened 3 years ago. I was 29 and had a boring, ridiculous office job. Since I was a new employee, I didn't get any vacation time. But I loved Halloween. I looked forward to a quiet night, watching horror movies, and handing out candy to the kids. I lived in a small house on the outskirts of the city. My girlfriend was away, so I was alone. It was a quiet street. The lights usually went out by 9 p.m. I kept giving out candy until the doorbell stopped ringing. At 10:30 p.m., the street was dead. I was sprawled on the couch watching The Conjuring 2. A knock on the side door made me jump. I thought it was one of those kids who came late for trick-or-treating. I opened the door. No one was there. Just the wind and dry leaves. I muttered under my breath, "Annoying kids." I went back to the movie. 15 minutes later, the sound of knocking again, but this time it came from the back door, the door that led to the deck. No one ever goes back there. I muted the TV. The house fell silent. Then I heard it, the metallic, soft sound of the doorknob turning. Someone was testing the lock, very slowly, trying to be quiet. I crawled on all fours to the kitchen, keeping my head low. I peeked out. There was a man there. Dark clothes, a cheap, broken plastic mask pulled up onto his forehead. And in his hand, he held a large iron crowbar. He wasn't rushing. He was completely calm, calculated. He knew I was home. He didn't care. I backed up into the hallway and called 911, whispering the situation to the operator. The operator said, "Barricade yourself somewhere." I grabbed a cleaver and sat down at the top of the stairs, my whole body shaking. From up there, I saw his shadow move. Then, the distinct snap of the screen window being torn. He had gone for the basement window. Tearfully, I told the operator, "He's coming in." Shatter! The sound of breaking glass. That wasn't a TV burglar. Burglars run away when they hear someone. This guy came for me. The wait for the police felt like 1,000 years. I could hear the crunching of glass under his boots from the basement. Suddenly, the light of the patrol cars hit the living room. Red and blue police lights danced on the walls. The intruder heard it too. He bolted. I saw him through the window as the police swarmed the yard and tackled him. When they handcuffed him, they emptied his bag onto the hood of the car. It wasn't a robbery bag, it was a kill kit. A crowbar, duct tape, thick plastic zip ties. He wasn't after the cash in my wallet. The police later told me the suspect was linked to several missing persons cases. I don't stay alone on Halloween night anymore. Every creaking sound takes me back to that night. If the police had arrived 5 minutes later, I would be bound in the basement of my own home right now. They also found a loaded .45 caliber handgun and rope in his backpack. He was ready for a long night. I was just lucky. I hope you enjoyed this content. To see more scary videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel and activate that notification bell so you can be the first to know.